His white hair is so disabled that he momentarily reminds me of a mad scientist. He walks alarmingly slow, but I know better than to offer to help him. He hates that. He used to be so badass and now he's not, and he feels every bit of that loss. Coffee's on the table, I say, grabbing my keys and heading for the door. I laid out your pills and locked them already. Bill's coming in an hour. You sure you'll be okay until then? I'm not an invalid, Josh, he practically growls at me. I try not to smile. He's pissed. Pissed is good. It makes things seem a little bit normal. I'm in my truck and down the driveway in seconds, but I'm not sure it'll be enough. I don't live far from school, but the backup to get into the parking lot on the first day is always a bitch. Most teachers will look the other way today, but I wouldn't have to worry about it anyway. No one's going to give me detention, late or not. I floor it, and a couple of minutes later, I'm waiting to get into the lot. The line of cars snakes out onto the road, but at least it's periodically moving. I'm running on 4 hours of sleep and only 1 cup of coffee. I wish I had time to grab another one for myself, but I didn't, and it probably would have ended up in my lap by the time I got to school anyway. I pull out my schedule while I'm idling and check it again. Shop isn't until 4th period, but at least it's not all the way at the end of the day. The rest of it I don't give a shit about. When I finally make it back onto campus, Drew is out front with his usual followers, regaling them with any number of BS stories about his summer. I know they're all BS because he spent most of the summer hanging out with me, and I know for a fact that we didn't do crap, apart from the time he spent disappearing with whatever girl he was hooking up with. He was on my couch. Looking at him now, I don't think there's anyone happier to be back at school. I'd roll my eyes if it didn't seem such a chick thing to do, so instead I just stare blankly ahead and keep walking. He nods in my direction as I pass, and I return the gesture. I'll talk to him later. He knows I won't go near him when he's surrounded. No one else acknowledges me, and I pass through the rest of the crowds into the main courtyard just as the first bell rings. My first 3 classes could all be the same. All I do is listen to rules, pick up a syllabi, and try to stay awake. My grandfather was up 5 times last night, which means I was up 5 times last night too. I really have to start getting more sleep. In a week you will, I think, bitterly, but I won't dwell on that now. 10:45 a.m. First lunch. I'd rather just head straight to shop. Eating this early sucks. I make my way to the courtyard and park myself on the back of the bench farthest from the center, the same one I've sat at for the past 2 years. No one bothers me because it's easier to pretend I don't exist. I'd rather spend the half hour sweeping sawdust than sitting here, but there isn't any sawdust to sweep yet. At least it's early enough that the middle branches aren't scorching under the sun. Now I just have to wait out the next 30 minutes, which will probably be the longest of the day. Last year, surviving, that's what I'm doing now, and it hasn't been quite as horrible as I expected. I get a lot of sideways looks, probably because of the way I'm dressed, but other than that, no one really talks to me, except for Drew, the Ken doll. I did run into him this morning, but mostly it was a non-event. He talked, I walked, he gave up. I've made it to lunch, and this is the test. No one's really had much of an opportunity for socializing yet, so I've been able to skate below the surface. But lunch is just a highly unsupervised high dimension. Avoidance seems the best option at first, but I have to face the looks and the comments at some point. Personally, I'd rather shove a cactus up my ass, but apparently that option is on the table, so I might as well just rip the band-aid off now and get it over with. Then I'll find an empty restroom and check my hair and fix my lipstick, or as we cowards like to call it, hide. I tried to surreptitiously check out my clothes another set of eyes on that bench with him are going to be trained on my back. And when I say my back, I mean my ass. I recontemplate the unstable surface of the papers. No pressure or anything. I avert my eyes back to the task at hand in time to hear him add, "If you're looking for some place to sit, my lap is free." And there it is. It's not even clever or original, but his equally wit-free friends laugh anyway. There go my hopes for our burgeoning sibling kinship. I step off the ledge and start walking, keeping my eyes trained straight ahead as if I have some purpose outside of simply surviving this walk. I'm not even halfway through the day. I still have 4 of the 7 classes left on the schedule that shit gave birth to. I got to school early enough this morning to stop in the office and pick up my schedule. Of course, if I'd known at the time what I'd find on it, I might have put off the inevitable. It was crazy in there again, but Miss Marsh, the guidance counselor, had given instructions for me to go to her office and pick up my schedule from her personally. Just another one of the many perks of being me. "Good morning, Nastya, Nastya," she said, repeating my name with 2 different pronunciations and absent-mindedly looking to me for confirmation, which I didn't give her. She was far too cheery for the first day of school, or for 7 o'clock in the morning in general. It was definitely unnatural. It's probably a class for guidance counselors only. How to emit inappropriate joy in the face of adolescent horror. I'm fairly certain they don't make teachers take it because they don't even bother to pretend. Half of them are as miserable as I am. She motioned for me to sit. I didn't. My skirt was way too short for sitting in a chair that didn't have a desk obscuring it. She handed me a map of campus and my schedule. I scanned it, mostly looking for the electives because I knew what all the required courses were going to be. You've got to be kidding me. For a minute, I was convinced she must have handed me the wrong schedule, so I checked the top of the paper. No, that's me. I wasn't sure what the right reaction was in that situation. You know, the one where the universe decides to put its steel-toed boot up your ass yet again. Crying was out of the question, and a screaming hissy fit laced with maniacal laughter and profanity was, most definitely, off the table, which left me with my only other option: stunned silence. Miss Marsh must have caught the look on my face, and I'm betting it was pretty expressive, because she immediately launched into a detailed explanation involving graduation requirements and overfilled electives. She sounded almost like she was apologizing to me, and maybe she should have been, because it seriously sucked. But I almost wished I could have told her it was okay, so she'd stop feeling bad. I'd survive it. It would take more than a few shitty classes to break me. I took my schedule, my map, and my abject horror and made my way to class, reading again and again as I went. Unfortunately, it stayed the same every time. At this point, I've made it almost to the halfway mark. It hasn't been so bad, relatively speaking, and everything in my life is relative. My teachers aren't horrible. My English teacher, Miss McAllister, actually looks me in the eye like she's daring me to expect her to treat me differently. I like her, but the worst is yet to come, so I won't start pouring the champagne just yet. Plus, I still have to navigate the trail of tears that is this courtyard. I'm nothing if not a coward, but I can't put it off much longer. I'm about 6 feet in and not doing so badly. I'm focused on my goal, the beacon that is the double-door entrance to the English wing, on the opposite side of my brick-lined square nemesis. I take in everything I can with my peripheral vision. It's packed out here, and loud, so unbearably loud. I try to let all of the separate conversations and voices melt together into what I imagine is one continuous hum. There are small groups around all of the benches piled on top of them and standing next to them. Some students sit on the outer edges of the garden boxes that are placed incrementally throughout. Then there are the smart ones who sit on the ground in the shade of the walkway that runs around the perimeter. There aren't enough places to sit. There's can without drawing attention. I make it to the relative obscurity of the building's overhang and reach for the door handle and pull. Nothing. It doesn't give, and I repeat, crap, it's locked. It's the middle of the day. Why would they lock the doors from the outside? It's locked, a voice from below me says. No shit. I look down. I hadn't even noticed the boy with the sketchbook sitting on the ground right next to the doors.